Probably some old friends, familiar works. Is that everybody or still a few people? I'll start talking and make it happen. So one of the things that we sort of went back and forth on as we were conceiving of this space and how we wanted to think about exhibitions, what we didn't initially want to include the permanent collection because, as I explained, the sort of structure of things being this laboratory of thinking about the Pacific Rim and working with the sort of 6 month time frame and that kind of dynamic situation. However, it also became pretty clear that people really want to see our collection. And the other reason why we had said we didn't necessarily set out to show the collection when we were conceiving of this space is because one of the primary reasons we're building this whole museum is to be able to properly showcase our collection in a really quality, dynamic way. So it occurred to me that even though that will be the case, there's so much to this collection that we will still not be able to always have on view in the new building. And so so I had the idea to maybe kind of balance out some of these different demands and questions to do kind of smaller focus shows of the collection. In this space we can't necessarily, we have these different sort of smaller areas, but to sort of take these things in a more kind of nuanced way. And I was thinking about already this body of work that we have by Louis Bultz as a kind of starting point for a focus, like a focus show on photography. In my conversations with Rodrigo, the artist downstairs, one of the things we were talking about was this series that Louis Bultz did in 1974, which many of you are probably very familiar with. It's, I think, a really important work in our collection, documenting growth and the new building that was happening here in Orange County. It's very famous. It's a very, very important series. And for Rodrigo, it gets back to that idea of, even though there's this sense of sort of uniformity and repetition, and there's a kind of emptiness, for lack of a better term, it's not devoid of content. That sense of ubiquity and repetition and that kind of sameness from one image to the next and the multitudes of that repetition is really what the work is about. And for him, that's very much tied into what some of the thinking that he is kind of foundational for him with the work downstairs as well. Anyways, Rodrigo is super knowledgeable about photography, which are talking about these relative to work, by this artist, John Nivola, who is also in our collection. And so as I was talking to him, it occurred to me that maybe it would be nice to invite him to curate this show with me, and so we did. So he and I kind of went back and forth, selecting imagery. As we didn't exactly know what we were looking for, but as we sort of looked at things together and refined our list, we came up with this more concise grouping that is looking at not necessarily just landscape, but the world around us in this very kind of unidealized way. And the camera as a tool for doing that. So there's a whole range of artists really showcasing some of the strengths of our collection. There's sort of two groups emerged as we started to look through the collection. One being artists that work with a more conceptual approach to making photography. So there's a sort of series approach to documenting the landscape, and again, this idea of a multitude and sequencing of images that is really important to some of these artists, Judy Fitzkin and otherwise. And then there's even a further, more conceptual approach to using the camera with artists like Charles Gaines, Wallace Berman, and then even kind of pushing the kind of capability of the camera and its ability to record over time with the long exposure, for example. Artists like Miles Coolidge and Uda Barth, who are in this next space. On the other end of the spectrum is this idea, Rodrigo came up with this term, arrested decay. So the idea that the camera can capture something that's sort of capturing this moment where something is dying or decaying. And so the sort of other elements of landscape that you'll see in works in this next gallery over here, including a Cassandra Coblentz. Giving you a general summary to the exhibition overall. I know there's a lot we